That's more than just having answers to questions in their job. They want to know what other departments are doing. They want to know what the plans for the organization are, what we're doing in the market, our marketing. And to know that information helps them feel a better part of the organization, where they're truly involved and they could better be an ambassador. To not have that information, you're kind of left as a victim and just what you happen to be told, and heaven help you if you end up reading it in the newspaper instead of getting it from your own manager. Also important, 29% decreased training development. Most companies, kind of a knee-jerk reaction when there's a cutback, they cut training and development. I find that's not, some of the best companies don't do that, but they keep invested in training development. But across the board, that tends to be a knee-jerk reaction. And finally, a decrease in benefit coverage. So, you look at this list, and a couple of them relate to the finances of the business, specifically what people are paid and the benefits that we're covering. But I find it fascinating that 2/3 of the reasons have nothing to do with the budget. They have to do with how people are treated, how they're involved, how they're supported, encouraged, trusted, and respected on a daily basis. The softer side of the business is what truly drives performance and drives competitiveness. And to help hospitals and healthcare realize that, and again, take it beyond just a feel-good type of thing that we happen to do when if someone's in a good mood or has had a good month, to make it a more systematic approach is what's needed to really make this part of the culture. The challenge essentially is how do we get some people like this from the office to the next slide here. Okay. People like this, and the answer, I'm convinced, I hope to convince you, is this taking this soft, fuzzy notion of employee engagement more seriously. Okay, and with that, I think I accidentally hit something and I've lost the slides altogether. So, okay, come on. Okay, I'm just gonna re-log in here. I apologize. So we're gonna focus on two things specifically, and I feel the answer lies in this topic of engagement. Excuse me, I'm okay. Here we go. I'm sorry, I got back up. I'm going to stop touching things and just let you do the driving, Jim. So, employee engagement. Now, what we know from extensive research from Gallup organization that engaged staff are 18% more productive. Next, 12% more profitable. Next, 27% less prone to absenteeism, 62% less likely to be involved in job accidents, 51% less likely to leave their jobs, 31% less likely to leave their jobs in high turnover organizations, such as hospitality, such as, at times, healthcare, such as high turnovers, high stress call centers, that type of thing. So we've got Gallup and their extensive research, longitudinal research with over 2 million employees over an extended amount of time, have really laid a foundation to say this stuff really strongly correlates with higher profitable, higher productive organizations. It's not a fluke that you do these things and you get serious results in result to that. In one study from 139,000 patients from 225 hospitals, they showed that patient satisfaction levels were directly related to staff interaction and directly correlated with employee engagement. So again, it's one of these elements are in the Q12, which they boiled it down to 12 elements. The preponderance were these type of issues of engagement, and of those, one of them was directly related to recognition. In the last 7 days that you've been recognized, they don't say who you were recognized by, they don't say what the recognition was, but they leave it to the employee to define that, and overwhelmingly that variable tends to rank lowest, Gallup tells me, in healthcare and really all organizations they work with, government, profit, nonprofit. In the basement is people feeling valued for the work they're doing today. And I think part of that is because times have changed. Business is moving faster. We're in constant change. We have more focus on high tech. The average healthcare worker is spending a lot more time staring at a computer screen. It's hard for a patient to feel valued if you're not even looking at him when you're talking to him. And so the challenge is great to pierce through those constraints to make the connection to the patient in a way that is meaningful to them. In one New York hospital study, they found the higher levels of employee satisfaction directly affected, next slide, better patient experience, next, higher patient satisfaction, as well as a greater patient likelihood of recommending the hospital to others, which has been shown to be a primary driver in patient healthcare decisions. So again, the informal referral, the business in the future is tied to this of how current patients are being treated. Next slide. This kind of all leads to the conclusion that patient experiences will not be good if employees are not engaged, if they're not truly engaged. And so it kind of leads us to say, well, how can we take this whole topic of engagement a little bit more seriously, and what does that look like if we do, and what does it mean in going forward and truly creating that as part of our system, part of our culture. And what I'm delighted to say that of all the variables in engagement, the one that has risen to the top as being the key in impacting engagement cultures is recognition. Next slide. That from the Aberdeen group in their research of what's making the biggest impact in engagement, their number one best-in-class strategy for organizations that have increased their engagement scores, have moved towards really a culture of engagement, is employee recognition programs. And that's over 60% of those organizations that have broken through the barrier to be high engagement organizations have taken the topic of recognition seriously and systematically have set up a program, a system really, that has moved to make it a stronger part of the culture, that has tapped into the behaviors of each leader and even peer-to-peer based recognition or employee to management or customer, patient to employee at all levels to make it a serious part of how we do things around here, to the point where it becomes part of the culture, which means it's something that people expect on a daily basis. That if you do a good job, not just for showing up, but for doing a good job, core values, desired performance, finishing a project, delighting a patient, how you handle the patient's family, it gets noticed. It could be a word here, it could be a note there, it could be a nomination, it could be points, it could be in some way it's called out. And by doing that, it increases the likelihood that person will do more of the same, and that other people who hear about or directly notice that it happened will also start to do this type of thing. Systematically, you point the picture of this is what not just this is what we need, but this is what gets noticed around here. So that is what must really be serious. Is that if you say one thing and do something else, people are wise to that. But if they look at what you're doing as what's really important around here, as management systematically does this activity, as upper management does it, it takes on a reality that changes the culture going forward. Next slide. in fact, again, from their study, they said by acknowledging an employee's positive behaviors and demonstrating appreciation for employee contributions, that individual worker will continue those behaviors, stay engaged with the company, and feel motivated to perform and to perform on a daily basis. So it really becomes, by taking this soft, fuzzy notion and taking it to heart, taking it seriously and acting in a way where this isn't left to chance, that becomes part of what it means to work here, and it becomes part of the expectation on every leader to use it in their sphere of influence. You move away from it being a random activity that some of your best managers use and a lot of managers refuse to use, and everyone else in between is kind of lurking to see what happens to the people if they do or do not use it, to saying this is the direction we're going, and increasingly giving layer after layer of leaders to take it seriously and to integrate it into their behavioral repertoire, I like to call it, where they make it happen on a daily basis. Not every person every day, but every day someone, as they look for and highlight performance and then act on that in ways to acknowledge the people that made it happen. Next slide. So recognition in a nutshell is acknowledging and appreciating people for their achievements. Now notice it doesn't say acknowledging and appreciating people for showing up to work. You'd think that would be the case in how recognition is done in many organizations. I was in working with the hospital in Missouri a while ago, and I said, well, what are you doing around the recognition? And they said, oh, we're all over it. We are all over it. We got a summer picnic coming up. We do years of service. We celebrate birthdays. We have wonderful holiday parties at around Thanksgiving. We give people a turkey. We have a Employee of the Month program that vote on. It's kind of turned into a popularity thing, but yeah, we are all over it. And I'll say, wow, that's a lot of activity you're doing. I didn't hear recognition on the list. Recognition makes people feel special. And if you do something for everyone, a summer picnic, boy, they're going to love this. The reality is that people don't view that as recognition. In fact, the family didn't want to go on the picnic. We forced them, and the same thing with the holiday party. And you know, I don't want to go to the party. Last year, someone got drunk and told off the boss. It was embarrassing, you know. And so we got to stop doing what we think is important to people, and start asking them what's really important and doing those things when they perform. This is actually very directly related to healthcare, where the studies show, and then the gap between what's done and what's expected is that management, time after time, they do things and they say, we're doing this for employees. We're building the new wing for employees, or the new technology, whatever it is. And employees say, you didn't do that for us. You know, if you think that we're supposed to be more excited to work here because you did this program, no. To speak to the employee, you got to get to the employee level, and you got to start with finding out what's important to them and have a conversation, and to take it seriously and to personalize it, to customize it in a way that's meaningful to them. So that is a big thing that's come out of healthcare research on this. The other thing is that, especially with professional staff, and the higher you go in the hospital, it's been shown the less recognition you get. and that's a gap that can be focused on and needs to be focused on to not have holes in the culture, or to not just only get this if you happen to have a good manager that's good at it and everyone else wishes they were working for that person. Companies, organizations I've worked with on this topic, and I've worked with over 1,000, they take this serious, where they set a standard, much like they do on other things, on safety or patient care. They set a standard around employee recognition, and they hold management to that standard. And so they talk about it, they train to it, then they hold people accountable in a positive way. So if someone's not doing it, they have a talk with them. They show them the tools again, and they systematically get them in the game. It's not left to chance. That if you feel like doing it, hey, because if it's left to chance, it will not happen. And it's too important for this not to happen by design. Next slide. Jim. So, Maya Angelou, American poet laureate, she put it this way: people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And how you make them feel with recognition is that you spotlight what they did well, and you call them on it in a positive way. You say something, you jot a note, you put it, send an email, you copy their boss on it. The staff meeting, you start by reading a letter from a patient. And when the family's in, you take time to talk to the family and answer their questions. And all systematic small things that weave together to set a foundation, a framework, a tapestry of this is what it means to work here. This is how we deal with one another, how we deal with patients, but how we deal with peers as well, and how we deal with our managers. It runs through and through the hospital. Next slide. Now, although most employees want recognition, this is from my research, this is 99.4% of employees said they expect to be recognized when they do good work. And in fact, that word expect wasn't even in the equation, 10, 15 years ago. It used to be employees would say, yeah, it'd be nice if you got noticed around here. That'd be, they didn't really expect it. Today they expect it. Today they expect it. If they do a good job, they finish a project, they expect someone to say something, ideally their manager, but it could be a colleague, it could be the patient. They expect that. If it doesn't happen, once, then they shrug that off, but systematically it doesn't happen, then they start wondering if this is really the place they want to be, they should be, because it's too important. And when you look at the younger generation, research indicates they expect recognition on a daily basis. So if you hire a young person today, you say, okay, and after 12 months we're going to bring out the performance goals again you had and see how you did. That is not going to work. They're going to be gone before 12 months. In fact, the average tenure for a millennial today is 1.8 years and dropping because they want it to happen now in their sphere of influence. And so as a leader, you've got to connect them now and talk about what they can learn, who they can meet, how what they're doing now is going to lead to their future in the hospital, and how you're on their side to help them get there. So most all employees want this. On the next slide, we'll see that most managers think they're doing it. 80% of all managers, if you could advance that, say that they feel they're pretty good at recognition. Things I said, and in their head they're good at it, or they read the 1 Minute Manager or something, and they know it's important, and so I must be doing it, But if you go to their employees, a lot, and I've done this, and employees end up saying, "Are we talking about the same person here?" Because they never get recognition around here. Not just me, but other people. It never happens. Maybe when a manager started a job, 5, 8 years ago, they initially did it for some people, but no, they're too busy now. They're in meetings all the time. Are you kidding? The fact that I'd fall over dead right there if they called me out in a positive way in front of the group, does not happen. So there's a big gap that we have to close that gap. Next slide. The reality is few employees feel recognized today. Only 12% of employees say they get recognized in ways that are meaningful to them. And wouldn't you know, 3 times as many, 34%, say that they're not recognized in meaningful ways. Again, it goes back to the other things I was saying. We're doing the years of service. I don't know a person that say the day long in their job you get the 10-year pin. It just doesn't speak to them. We spend a lot of money on it. Or the birthday thing, the second Tuesday of the month, whoever's got a birthday, we got a cake in the meeting room for you. Really? Is that's supposed to make them feel excited? Personally, I don't like sharing my birthday with others. That's a very personal thing with my family. We're going to force recognition. It's not even something they want on them, and we're going to do that, and then we're going to say that we're good at it. That it's delusional, and that is the reality of healthcare today. So many things that are happening are a throwback to their roots, back when they were started by the nuns or whatnot. That does not connect with the reality of today's workforce, and we need to shake it off and move to the things that are meaningful now to the employees we have now, not what we used to do 20, 30, 40 years ago and we hang on to just because we've always done it. And this is the call to action that I try to make with a vengeance as I deal with healthcare and hospitals around the country. Next slide. And the reality, again, bringing it home to healthcare is even a little bit more dire. 46% of healthcare workers say they have not observed a single recognition event in their organization in the past month. Forget about the last 5 days, the past month, either for themselves or for anyone else. And again, if left unchecked, most managers will only focus on what? The problems, the mistakes, the fires to put out, the complaints from patients or patients' families. And at the core of the matter, this is something you have to be proactive about, to have it in place for when you have a mistake. Now you've invested in the relationship where it's easier to talk about the challenge and learn from that mistake, then that'd be the only thing you end up talking with people about. Next slide. So the business case for recognition, and again, we can clip through this pretty quickly, Jim, is, again, this isn't just a feel-good thing to do, to be nice to people. This is the biggest driver of results. This is direct data from my doctoral dissertation, where I found that of the managers that used recognition, 73% said they got the expected results when they used recognition to make that happen. 78% said it helped to increase productivity. Next. 80% said it helps make getting the work done easier. Next. 84% said it helps to increase performance. 90% said it helps to motivate people better. So overwhelming evidence that, gee, try, not only might you like it, but actually it can actually help get your job done better for you, the manager, as well as certainly for the employees and the job they're doing as they pass it on with patients as well. Next slide. And if you do this, if you get a critical mass of your leaders doing it, here's what you have in store. Your employees will feel 5 times more likely to feel valued than an organization that doesn't have a culture of recognition. 7 times more likely to recommend the organization as a place to work or as a place to get your health care. 7 times more likely for employees to stay with the organization. And 11 times more likely for employees to feel completely committed. Now, committed is not, being committed, I'm going crazy here. It's an engagement measure, again, and what we know from Gallup as well as in the next slide, Towers-Watson, is through their research, they found that truly committed employees deliver 57% more effort than uncommitted ones. That's like for every dollar you spend on employees, you get $1.57 return. If it's in the culture of recognition where they're made to feel valued for the job they're doing and they feel part of a team, they're part of a mission larger than themselves. They're living what they signed up to do, health care, to save lives, to aid families, and that is forefront in their daily activities. Next slide. So as it ties to the bottom line, there's a direct financial link between engaged, satisfied employees, increased patient satisfaction, and the bottom line success. Again, from research from the Forum for People Performance Management at the Northwestern University in Chicago, or just north of Chicago. And on the next slide, again, taking it a little closer to healthcare, we find that the direct link to operating income growth or profit is that if you have a culture of engagement, you could be 19% higher profit than organizations without that will have a 30% less profit in a culture that where engagement is not truly part of the culture. Next slide. So it's really, in my mind, become a strategic imperative that the organizational, cultural, and financial benefits of positive employee recognition, how that ties and drives increased employee engagement, leads for organizations to make this a true competitive advantage by taking this seriously. And these are just a few of the organizations. We're going to hear more from Barnabas Health and presently, but these are a few of the organizations I've I've worked for out of 100 in healthcare that have taken on the challenge to systematically make this part of their culture. Let me just talk about a couple of these in terms of the specifics of what does this look like. Bronson Healthcare, Kalamazoo, Michigan. Their head of HR at a management meeting with 300 managers passed out note cards to the leaders of the hospital, and just asked, hey, we'd like you to start noticing employees and jot them a note when they do something that ties to our core values and success. And once you know they did that, and people in the room rolled their eyes, and you can hear them muttering the things they come up with in HR, like we don't have anything to do. And God bless the HR leader there, who instead of slinking off, sorry to bother you, said, wait a minute, I couldn't help but notice, I passed out the note cards, that there was some pushback there. And let me just ask you a question. We just completed a 3-day retreat where we concluded that workforce excellence is one of our keys to competitive advantage going forward. Is that true or not? Well, everyone knew it was true. Well, let me ask you, what does workforce excellence mean if it doesn't include acknowledging individual contributions when people have done the things that we said are so important? Who has a better idea how we're going to get there? This will be the time to speak up. Nobody said anything. Not hearing a better idea? We will use note cards. In fact, in HR, we're going to help you by doing spot checks to see how your note cards are coming along. So when you give someone one of these, make a copy of it for your manager, because we're going to be checking. And they did check. And when they came across a manager that said, I didn't get to your note cards this month, we've been kind of backed up in the ICU, they set up a little meeting with the leader of that area of the hospital. And they told me, Bob, we never had to set up a little meeting with anyone. They got the message, we're serious about this one. You can't take everything to the mat, but you can take some things to the mat. And this is something worth taking to the mat, saying we are going to do this, we need to do this. And once you know they did, and once you know it worked, that incredible positive vibe that came back, and employees started asking, hey, can we use some of these note cards? And they, yes, you can. And last time I checked in with them, they were having, they had some managers who were getting creative. They were starting to send notes home to the families, thanking them for what their mom or dad did at work. And here's some coupons to take your parents out for ice cream. They're having fun with it, and it was working. You take WellStar as another example, 7-hospital chain out of Atlanta. I worked with them, one of the fastest organizations I've ever seen get into the game of being the culture of recognition. We say that it takes 7 or 8 years. It doesn't take 7 or 8 years to change a culture. You get focused on what you're trying to do, you can do that much shorter. I saw enormous progress in 3 months, and certainly by 18 months they had completely converted. And along the way, it was iterative. But they said, at one point they said, well, what are we doing for our managers? Well, they weren't doing anything for the managers. And what could we do for our managers? And they started, they printed up a notepad of their core values. They gave them to their leaders just to use with other leaders. When you see someone that's doing one of our core values, check it on this list, write their name on it, hand them a piece of paper. That was the program. And when they got together, as they did once a quarter, they would say, who's been recognized for one of our core values? How about 2? How about 3? Let's have those people come to the front of the room. Let's all give them a standing ovation, because this is our portion of our leadership staff that is walking the talk. And on your way out, we bought a couple different books. Pick one of those for your own development. Here's a program. I think it costs $200. Grassroots recognition tied to public recognition, visibility with upper management, a tool for self-development. It's not hard to do this stuff. It's not going to happen by magic. Or University of Michigan, who I worked with, where they took the message, did training for every manager to say, what does this look like? How do we raise the standards here? And they took that to heart. They went on to be ranked the #1 recognition organization in the country, based on saying this is we are serious about this. So, what does it look like? What are the elements necessary to pull this all together? On the next slide, and this is my, if we can go to that, Jim, systems approach to what does this look like? These are best practices, this as identified by the Recognition Professionals International Association I helped to found. And very quickly, there's 7 of them. This is what we found common elements in strong cultures of recognition. They all started with a personal management accountability of each manager in their sphere of influence, taking this seriously. So it's not the job of HR, the CEO of headquarters. It's the job of each manager to act and use these practices. It's nice to have, again, if you advance that, leadership sponsorship. It doesn't have to start there, however. It's always a little bit easier when it does, but you can bring them along. This could start any aspect, any level of the organization, I find. You've got to have measurement and tracking. If you can't measure it, you can't track it. And this is critical, I find, because, again, you can buy some Starbucks cards and start using those, and you get some random recognition stuff going on. But until you can start to measure it and see, are we better this month than last month, and are we moving yet again further next month, that's how we get to make it part of the culture. Next slide, training. That 81% of companies don't do any type of training on this. They kind of feel like, well, we told them it's important, that should be good enough. And, you know, this is one of the challenges of this topic, because it sounds simple. We figure, you know, how hard can it be? Just do that. It's not going to happen by accident. You've got to do more than that. You've got to show them what it looks like. You've got to give them the tools and the training to go with it. Communications is critical, not just to announce the changes, but to keep on it with the reminders. And the part where most of the play takes place is on the recognition rewards, you know, whether it's gift cards or whatnot. And again, that's a part, should be part of an entire system. And finally is the notion of process improvement. No matter what you do, it's not going to be perfect out of the chute. So set it up, get it going, look to improve it, and it's more important to be headed in the right direction. And with that, I'm very excited that we've got a great best practice that has done a great job to pull this all together. And let me hand over the introduction of Zachary back to Michael.
Thanks, Bob, for the time in the background. And I think everybody understands, or I hope they do, that the significance of these kind of recognition programs for healthcare workers in particular, and that's coming from a perspective at Online Rewards where, you know, we have 400 different programs in a variety of industries and fields. What we can certainly tell you is the nature of an employee who's selected for their vocation, for their career, to want to help others have a much higher propensity to be responsive to this type of recognition relative to many other industries that we support, manufacturing or automotive, insurance. They certainly, recognition plays a role, but we can certainly tell you impact-wise, the programs that we've seen successfully deployed in healthcare can be exponentially more significant over and above those others based on the nature of you know, the types of people. So with that, let me introduce Zach Lipner. Zach is the Vice President of Human Resources at Newark, Beth Israel Medical. As he describes, the tallest affiliate in the Barnabas Health System in New Jersey. Zach holds a Bachelor of Science in Industrial and Labor Relations for Cornell University, Master of Arts from Montclair State University. Zach began his career as Director of Food and Nutrition Services for Aramark. He's been at Newark, Beth Israel since 1987 in various management and operational roles, and has been the lead head vice president HR in that hospital, whether for the last 13 years or at least some portion of that. Over to you, Zach. Thanks for being available.
Thanks, Michael. We are going to talk about our journey towards creating a culture of recognition. And I wouldn't say that we've established one, because it's a journey, and we've been on this journey for a little while. And we call our program Beth Bucks just as a way of branding it, because we are Newark Beth Israel Medical Center. We're the tallest affiliate in the Barnabas Health System. The Barnabas Health System is the largest healthcare system in New Jersey. We have 6 hospitals in our system, And as we go around our HR table and we say, who's the biggest hospital, who has the most revenue, we can argue about those kinds of things, but nobody can argue about the fact that we're the tallest affiliate. We're the only one with a 13-story building. I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Mary Ellen, who's a nurse, although I have to point out that this is not her picture. All the pictures used in this program are fictitious because most of us, including Mary Ellen, are in the witness protection program. It was because of her that we converted from a cash comp model into what we have today. And there are still folks out there who are advertising for cash comp as the way to recognize employees. But the reason that I bring Mary Ellen up, and she's a NICU nurse and has been here for 35 or 40 odd years, is that we had a very robust Employee of the Month program. We would get a half a dozen nominations each month for Employee of the Month, great stories, telling great stories about what employees did. And we would have winners and runners-up, and Mary Ellen was the winner. And our president and a whole bunch of vice presidents went up one day and surprised her on the unit with a trophy and said, "You're the Employee of the Month this month." And I gave her a $100 American Express gift check and said, "This is for you to buy something special for yourself." And she had a smile on her face, and her team was very proud of her, and off we went. And a month later, I ran into her, and I said, "Hey, Mary Ellen, what did you ever do with that $100 American Express gift check I gave you?" And she said, "Oh, I sent it to my son so he could pay his phone bill in college." And from that, I realized that even though the moment of recognition was important and did all the things we wanted to do, it just didn't have the staying value that we need to have in order to create this culture of recognition. And I thought of my wife's company, where when she first started working there and she's in sales, they would run all these contests, and we had, the camera we got from her company was the Quest camera, and we had the TV we got, and we turned it on, and it was the Quest TV. And I said, that trophy value, that thing that people need in order to say, hey, my company gave me this, to build that attachment to their company was missing when we give away cash comp. So I wanted to move to something along the lines of this trophy value. I think it's interesting to point out, by the way, that shortly thereafter her company moved away from that, went to a totally cash comp model, and only now, today, are they moving back to a model such as the one that we now have here at Newark, Beth, Israel. But if we're really going to move our culture, our recognition programs towards a culture of recognition, the first thing we have to do is be willing to get off of the cash comp wagon. Now, there are folks who don't like it. There are folks who think cash comp is the way to go. It's fungible. People can do whatever they want with it. It's instantaneous. And that's what people want. And that's true. That is what people want. If you gave employees a choice of what would you like for recognition, the answer is give me cash, because I can do with it what I want. But it's not their money, it's ours. And we need to remember that we're the ones who design these programs, and we have other motives in mind. And I think one of them is building this organizational culture of recognition, and cash comp really does not get that done. So when I think about the different kinds of recognition that sit out there, I think of really 5 different categories. The first one are the Excellence Awards. Those employees of the month, those people who are mentioned on Press Ganey or HCAP surveys or whatever patient satisfaction tool you use, people who get recognized in the organization for excellence. And you have to start there. That's where we start. We continue with very strong excellence programs, but then we move on, and we move actually into the category of achievement awards, and Dr. Bob talked about them. They're the perfect attendance awards. They're the longevity awards. And you need to have those things too, although when we get it a little bit deeper into my presentation, I'll talk about why we are shrinking that part of our model. Then we have discretionary awards. This is where managers need to be able to recognize people who do great things on the spot in their organizations, in their teams. And whether it's note cards or other forms of recognition, or being able to give away something in the way of reward, as opposed to recognition, which is the thank you, and reward being the actual tangible gift that people get, we need to have managers with discretionary budgets. And we moved into that discretionary budget world after took me about 2 years to convince my organization, after my Mary Ellen story. that we need to get into this world. And at the time, our CEO was a little bit pliable, and I got him to allow some discretionary awards that managers would have budgets to be able to give actual prizes to employees based upon things that they do at their own discretion. Then we have peer-to-peer recognition, and this is my journey with Michael Levy and the online rewards program, and I'll talk about that in more detail. And I think that this is the next level of recognition and the thing that really needs to happen in order to create that culture of recognition, because if it's solely a top-down approach, which is what the first 3 bullet points on the slide lend themselves to, then you're not really changing culture, or, well, maybe there's a way to actually change culture a little bit more by going with peer-to-peer. And then recently we've brought in organizational accomplishments into our program, and I'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into each of these different types of recognition. So let's start with this Excellence Awards, and we're talking in excellence about our best employees. And I like to think of employees as there are 3 different kinds. There are your superstars. There are the ones that can do anything you give them to do. They are absolutely wonderful. The problem is that at the end of the day, you just can't get enough of them. You have some, but they can't possibly be 100% of your workforce. Then you have your steadies. These are the folks who show up every day. They give you their hearts, their minds, their souls. They really try. They're never going to be superstars, but they are the heart and soul of your organization. They're the ones who take pride in the organizations they work in. They're the ones with the 20, 30, 40 years of longevity, and you can't ignore them. And they're ones that you really have to appeal to and make sure that your recognition programs get to that group. And then there are the non-players, the ones who we need to off-board from our organization, the ones who should never be recognized for anything, including the fact that they've worked here for 30 years. But when it comes to the excellent ones, when it comes to the superstars in your organization, not only do you need to recognize them, not only do you need to reward them, but you have to tell their stories. And you have to tell their stories in a public way. So one of the features we have on our recognition website is success stories, where we post people's pictures and tell their stories of what they do. Because we want to share their experiences. It makes the organization feel good to know that there are other people in the organization who are trying really hard, who are succeeding. We have 3,600 employees in our organization. Everybody can't possibly know everybody, but everybody can feel to be a part of the team. So people who receive excellence awards, they really are motivated by that recognition, by that thank you, by that public acknowledgement, or even private acknowledgement of their successes. We tell their stories, but we have to give them something for it. And that's where we're able to give them some Beth bucks. So that's one that goes not only to reward, to recognition, but also to reward. Create these inspirational moments so that others want to be like them. In the achievement category, there are 2 programs we had in place here. The first one was service awards. Another thing that can't be missed. One of the things that our CEO and I have taken to doing over the years is that when you celebrate a significant anniversary here at the Beth, we go and pay you a visit. So if you have 30 years, if you have 40 years, on the day of your anniversary, we pay you a surprise visit in your workplace. And we say to the employees, do you know what today is? Every one of them knows exactly what today is. They know today is my 40th anniversary. I say, where were you 40 years ago today? They say, I was starting my career in Newark, Beth, Israel. If we as leaders miss those moments, we have no way to possibly recapture them. Well, in our program here through the online rewards program, we load up the list. It gets populated automatically, and the calendar is out there for everybody to see. But we actually take it to another level, because not only do you get some recognition from us as the leadership publishing it on the daily calendar, but you also get a spin on our spin and win game. I'll talk about that program a little bit later. But when an employee sees that a friend of theirs is getting an anniversary and they click on their name, they can send them a message. And one of the ways they send them a message is through peer-to-peer recognition and the spin and win game. So we link this achievement in a way so that their friends in the organization can also recognize it, even if they are not there on that day or not able to participate in the recognition event that actually happens in the departments and on the nursing units. And of course, built into all of these programs is the communication that's necessary around the fact that people are recognized. So in this case, what you're looking at is that letter that goes out to that employee that also recognizes them in case they didn't go on the website or they forgot when their anniversary was. A notice to a manager 7 days out to say, hey, don't miss this day on your calendar. And the notice to employees that say, hey, you just got something. What did you get? In this case, you got a token to play our spin and win game, and that will come up a little bit later with a link to our website so people can go right there and spend their token and take a chance and maybe win an iPad. And for those folks who don't have email and it's necessary to give them paper, we have the ability to print paper as well. And, you know, we always have those folks who want to hang these in their offices, so all of these achievements are important to some. So we've moved through the excellence, we've moved through the achievement category, now we're into the discretionary awards category, and this is where managers can actually give people Beth bucks to spend on our catalog. But employees can nominate others too, so when they do their peer-to-peer recognition, they can send that nomination off to managers. And what we're trying to do here is get the managers to use less of their discretion and more of the nominations that come through their own departments. And now I'll move into the peer-to-peer recognition, which I think is the most exciting part of our recognition program. It's called High Fives. And it's basically very easy. Employees go out, they find their colleagues in their list, and they get to recognize them by sending them a high five. Now, why do we want to do these high fives? Because we believe that peer-to-peer recognition is at the heart of creating this culture of recognition. If we think about my three categories of employees, the superstars, the steadies, the non-players. When a superstar sees a steady do something that is great and sends them recognition and say, I saw you do something that is great, and it comes from their peers, that is such a motivator to that person. It's great when it comes from managers, but I'll make the case that managers tend to only see their superstars in action. They don't see their steadies as having those great moments of accomplishment. But our other employees get to see it, and when our employees recognize each other, then we bring up the whole level in the organization. So what do? They go on the list, they pick out their name, they write what they did, and they send them a high five. Now, when they send them a high five, that employee gets a spin on our wheel. In fact, not only does the receiver get a spin, but the giver gets a spin as well. So it encourages people to go there. And 2 years into this program, we get 1,000 high fives a month in our program. And employees play the spin and win game. Now, it's a roulette wheel, and unfortunately, we don't have the interactive so that I could show you how it works. But picture this roulette wheel spinning with all the clicks. And, of course, it spins, and it spins just past that iPad 2 and lands on the 2 points. Because this program is budgeted at a certain amount. And the gaming is included in it so that we don't exceed our budget over there no matter how many high fives get sent out. Although if we get a lot of high fives, I do have the ability to increase the budget if I need to. And every month we give away one of these iPads. But we want you to think you're going to win one and not. It's just like the wheels down the shore in New Jersey. It's rigged. If you didn't know that, well, keep playing. Woody Allen used to tell a great story about how his father owned a concession on the boardwalk in Coney Island. You had to knock down the milk bottles with a softball. He said, I could never do it. One year a hurricane came by, took out the whole boardwalk. The only thing left standing were those milk bottles. So we drive the peer-to-peer through the spin and win game, and then we make people aware of organizational accomplishments. And we have 6 goals that we put forth for our organization. You can kind of see them on my screen. Overall HCAP score, overall ED score, hand washing compliance, central line associated bloodstream infections. And when we meet our goals, everybody in the organization gets a spin on the wheel. Again, it doesn't increase the budget because it's game, but somebody wins. But here's a way that we can take our recognition program, which people pay attention to, and on the first page get a scorecard of what's going on in the hospital based upon what's important to us in our organization. So as we create this culture of recognition, we have to understand, and I think we all do, that it's really about the recognition and not the reward. But at the same time, if we don't put the reward behind it, we're not going to bring along the culture, because that's what people want. They want things to take with them, not just the pat on the back. We need to create these destinations for recognitions, and the web is a great tool for doing it, and it can help us to leverage it through social media in a whole bunch of ways, through email notifications. But we want to have people coming back to our recognition site, and as we revise our programs and modify our programs and put new things into our programs, that site is the destination. So it's not a flavor of the month anymore. It's just all baked into the same program with modifications that come out from time to time. I think we need to brand it, and our branding of Beth Bucks has been huge. People really love the name, Beth Bucks. Can I have some Beth Bucks? It's a great way to make it attachable and tangible. We need to make it fun. Workplace needs to be fun. Dr. Bob put up a whole bunch of slides that say workplace isn't fun anymore, but there are ways we can make it fun. There's a gentleman named Terry Paulson who's a mentor of mine. Terry always says, you got to have fun at work. If you're not having fun at work, fix the problem. But if you won't fix the problem or you won't ask for help, please go away, because you're spoiling the fun for the rest of us. And we have fun with the Beth Bucks program. We want to keep it on target. We want to make sure that people are paying attention to the goals of the organization and that our recognition programs don't get away from us. And lastly, we want to tell the success stories. We want to tell them loudly and broadly. And we do that every day through our Hall of Fame, because anyone can go out and say, who's gotten recognition recently? And you can go out on the Hall of Fame and see today's recognition and yesterday's recognition. You get to see 7 days worth of recognition as you scroll down through these slides. Try to make it fun. We have an annual poetry contest. We give away Beth Bucks as part of our poetry contest. We have other contests along the way. As these things come up, we have a way to include them in the recognition program. But again, these fun events are brought back into our reward and recognition programs. The last slide is a thank you to my mentor and boss, Dr. John Brennan. And I know he's not on the call, but I want to recognize him anyway, because he lets me play HR every day of the year. And he's a great boss, and I love him, and I just wanted to mention him and recognize him. He's not looking for recognition. He's not looking for Beth Bucks. But Dr. Brennan, you're a great boss. Thank you very much for allowing me to do what I do every day. Michael, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Zach, and Dr. Bob, thank you. We apologize, everybody, if we've held you, a little bit longer. We were, obviously want to try and get it all in 60 minutes. Hard to do. I think Zach and Dr. Bob, certainly myself, will be happy to stay on the line for a little longer if people have some questions. We did get some questions, coming in. Further, myself, our contact information, as is Zach and Dr. Bob's, up there. If you'd like to reach out to any of us post this with any particular questions, certainly would be happy to answer or respond. If you did want to ask any questions, I think probably the best way to do it is through the chat service. So we'll stay on for a few more minutes. If people would like to ask any of us some questions, I'll pass it over to the audience. If anybody did have a question you'd like to ask any of the three of us, I'll give a couple of minutes for that.
Actually, a few questions came in as we were all talking. Let's see, one there from Helen who asked, I'm not sure if am I on now?
Yep.
Yes, Helen asked,
that's a good one for you.
Let me just take a stab at this one. She asked, what's the best way to assess the need for recognition in my organization? Most organizations find that they have the need or the challenge, from their employee survey, and there's usually some elements that relate to recognition on there, or you create an index, maybe 6 questions that speak to this I feel valued for the job I do. My manager's available to answer questions. They discuss with me my career path. I'm able to have an impact on a daily basis. Those type of questions and then of course a lot of organizations can do that for you as well. But it really starts there, and then it's not that hard to have a focus group to say what would it look like if we did more of this, and get you in the game. I advocate creating a recognition committee, a task force that try to get each part of the hospital represented and to take on the challenge. And it's not a money thing. We're not talking about comp. We're saying, what can we do to thank people when they do a good job? What would that look like? And of course, if you get serious about really setting up a system, you need to use something like online rewards, which really helps you to track it and then measure it, and with feedback reports and where it's working and where it's not, and to systematically get better month after month.
Thanks, Dr. Bob. Zach, there's one that came in from Cami. Maybe you'd be open to responding. How did you choose and develop the different ideas for recognition?
I think it's been an evolution. We started off by just taking what we had and converting all of those different awards throughout the organization from cash comp into these prizes. Then I met you, Michael, and peer-to-peer was something that, I was a little skeptical of at first, because I thought, well, this is just going to get gamed. People are just going to recognize each other and get spins on the wheel. What I've learned over time is that the disengaged do that for a month, but then they lose interest because, let's face it, they're disengaged. And the more I think about peer-to-peer recognition, and the more I read the high fives that I see on the site, the more enthusiastic I am about peer-to-peer recognition. So when we bring peer-to-peer recognition in there, and to keep it fresh, that's where I rely on Mr. Levy and his expertise to give us the technology to be able to deliver it. And, it does come through focus groups and meetings with employees and employee engagement surveys. You got to keep it fresh, but you have to be careful not to make it the flavor of the month. And I think that's where creating the culture of recognition and creating the social media and the websites around it, keeping it all in one place and keeping it focused is so important.
Well, Zach, that's a good, a segue to a question that clients often ask, which is the financial implications of these. Are they expensive? Are they expensive to put together? Do they take a lot of money to make them successful and impactful programs? So what we tend to find when one delves a little deeper, and I think this is probably the case, your experience, Zach, but for many of our clients, the companies are spending the money already. They are legacy programs that may have been in existence from whatever period of time in the past. There are then informal programs that are being managed or done or put together on perhaps a department level, or somebody's credit card expense reports, i.e., there isn't necessarily any assumption that says one must need to find a new budget for this, but one might carefully have a look at what the company might be already spending in these areas and ask oneself the question, are we doing the best we can with this budget? Have we put this together in some kind of coordinated approach whereby different elements of recognition, anniversaries and peer-to-peer or manager spot awards or employee of the month or a safety program, or even just initiatives like hand-washing compliance, right? Are we actually bringing these together in some kind of coordinated fashion? Because the employees, they don't have a view and perspective that says, naturally there should be 6 different programs that I'm eligible for. Of course, that's how you do it. Their view is make it easy for me to understand what the programs are that I can benefit from. Let me interact with them. The easier it is for me to understand what they are and what's eligible, the better it is. So we're probably saying, to those clients asking the question financially, you probably already are spending the money. You're just not spending it very well in any kind of coordinated fashion. So not only are you not necessarily looking to find new money, but we'd probably say to you, and with the same amount of money, one can probably yield a 10 to 20% increase in returns Why? Because we're not spending all that, organization money re-educating and retraining all these separate little programs. No, it should be one big program. It has elements to it, of course, and tracked accordingly. So anyway, that's the that's the background.
But Michael, to some degree, you got me in a little bit of trouble because when we moved to your platform 2 years ago, and we really stepped up our social media and aspect of our recognition program and added the peer-to-peer and started to attract a whole bunch of attention, my spend went up. Managers started using their discretionary budgets, and of course, my friend Dr. Brennan said, oh, let's give something for this and something for this and something for this, and pretty soon I had to put through the budget for 2014, and our CFO said, Zach, you have to take something out of this budget. So, Laura, what are we going to take out? And what we ended up taking out was some of the achievement awards. We've taken out that perfect attendance because you get something extra just for showing up. That's what you get. You get paid for showing up. Because we didn't want to take away anything from the discretionary awards program. We didn't want to take anything away from the peer program. We didn't want to take anything away from the excellence program. So as we started to shrink the program a little bit for 2014, we took it out of those achievement awards because we don't think that they were really motivating behavior or motivating behavior in the right way. So when you have a plethora of programs that sit out there, you got to move it from time to time, and sometimes it's about shrinking budgets too when you're successful in other areas.
Bob, any comments on rewarding for showing up?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent example. It's because people, I get the question often, how do we get there? How can we be like Disney now? And so you got to start where you are, which might be just starting to turn the ship, so you start to add more elements of performance-related recognition, and over time you can let go of others, or you can cut back again the spend. You might still have for perfect attendance. Maybe they are sent a certificate, but there's not points that go with it. There's not an award that goes with it, not a catalog item. And so you still do the activity, but you allocate the budget towards the things that has more of a payback, which actually, as that works, you end up with a greater revenue from success of the core values and the performance objectives that you tend to end up with more money you can spend on it because it's working.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody spending some extra time. Again, the contact information for Zach, Bob, and I are available, and we'd be happy to answer any questions separately. I'll end with, I think, some very meaningful information reference point in terms of, why we're having this conversation, why it's of interest to you, why obviously from Online Rewards, and Bob and Zach, thanks for sharing your experiences, is to say, look, we can be pretty impactful on outcomes, and whether we like it or not, the industry's changed, and outcomes, whether it be HCAHPS or patient sat, is fundamental. And when you've got a McKinsey study, 2010, coming out specifically on the healthcare industry saying a 1-point decrease in leadership effectiveness, again, this is only a part of leadership effectiveness, but one that we would probably all in HR recognize is pretty impactful, aka Bob's earlier slide. A 1% decrease in leadership effectiveness can result in a 33% reduction in income per bed. A 33% decrease in income per bed. So while the hospitals are struggling, many, we all understand, to manage the challenges of not just the legislative changes, but the financial realities of delivering the level of care that's wanted, is the best solution to turn around and say, well, don't worry, we won't treat our healthcare workers any better than we've been doing in the past. That we won't do. In fact, we'll see if we can squeeze that, because that's really going to help us improve our financial performance. When you look at the McKinsey study and say 1% decrease in leadership effectiveness reduces income per bed by 33%, one certainly ought to ask some questions internally to say, maybe we can be a little bit more creative. Maybe we can try and make the experiences of our employees a little bit better. If we do that, maybe we can increase income per bed. maybe we can increase patient SAT HCAP scores. For these are inexpensive ways in which one can have a fairly significant impact, i.e. both the research from Dr. Bob sharing with us and the actual real-world experiences, of Zach, and hopefully some of the experiences you've had yourself. So I'll leave you all with that. I thank you all very much, appreciate it, and have a good rest of the week.